let's see how this works. Um, I'm literally just trying an experiment, but there's something to discuss, so I figure let's give it a shot. All right. So, um, there's a couple things that are going on right now in the industry that I think is interesting. Wanted to talk about it. This will likely be a podcast episode as well, but I figured I'd try recording it live and see how it works. All right. So, specifically, the thing that kind of caught my interest today is this news right here. Okay. So, fate of clear cooperation at hand as Ketchmark issues warning. All right. You read into it, and basically, what the article is saying is Michael Ketchmark, of the lawyer that won Sitzer v. NAR, is still pursuing Gibson, and I'm not sure if he's directly involved in Batten, which is the case that is still alive. Um, I'm going to assume that he might be, but he made this statement right here. Right? It is my expectation that after this meeting, when this comes to an NAR vote overall, that they'll do the right thing and remove that policy, meaning clear cooperation policy, and let the free market continue to work. If they refuse to do so and the committee votes in favor of this policy and it goes on and changes are not made, we'll take the depositions of people involved and figure out exactly why they did that and what was the motivation behind it, and then make a decision at that point how to proceed. The thing I don't get, and he explained this, so it's down here below. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. Ba, ba. Did have his eyes individual brokers. Okay. So we get this, right? Ketchmark said he did have his eyes to individual brokers who would be voting on the CCP. I don't want anybody to suggest or think that I'm threatening the National Association of Realtors or threatening anybody in the organization, although that's exactly what he did. But what I am saying is that whoever is voting to continue to enforce this rule, if we believe that it is done with anti-competitive goals in mind, that we will take their deposition as we'll hold anyone who is involved in that responsible for that. There are legal means that are available to hold any corporation involved in the account. That's what we would do. Um, let's see. And then we get this. Um, like, clarify that you don't have to have filed a lawsuit against someone to take their deposition. We can take the deposition of anybody who's involved in this process, whether or not there's a lawsuit against them, whether or not a release has been issued. Um, I don't get this. I don't. Now, granted, I've not ever practiced, trial court. I've never been, in front of a court in litigation, but it isn't as if like Ketchmark's not the Department of Justice. You know what I mean? He's not a government official. Like he's a private lawyer. In order to take a deposition, like deposition is in the context of discovery. Like you don't just go get to like just go randomly ask people, to come in and take an oath and answer questions. Like that's just not a power that lawyers have generally. Like typically there has to be a party. There has to be a lawsuit. And he's claiming you don't need a lawsuit against someone to take the deposition. Really? Like under what universe? I just want to know. Like so for example, like does that mean I'm a lawyer? Can I just take his deposition, for out of nowhere? For no reason? Do you know what I mean? Like you can't I don't this is a little I don't get that. I don't get that. And I mean, for Inman to not push back, I suppose I feel like the reporters be like, exactly explain that theory to me. Like how does that work exactly? You're not in a lawsuit. There's no legal right for you to just go ask people questions, take their depositions. And again, take depositions not the same thing as like asking questions, right? Asking question would be if he sent an email to NAR and said, hey, or to some quote broker who voted on this committee, like, hey, did you vote on this? And if you did, why did you do that? That's asking a question. You're free to ask a question. Anyone could ask questions of anybody. They don't have to answer you though. Deposition is different. Deposition means you have to show up and then you have to be sworn. It's like under oath. Like that's the whole point. So that's not just asking a question. Uh, what does he mean? I really just want to understand like why he thinks he has this power. You know, maybe in theory because there's a settlement, right? Under the settlement of Sitzer, that gives him some ability to take that. I don't. I mean, I have to go back and reread that settlement, but that's not again how that works, as far as I know. I mean, sure, he, as the plaintiff's lawyer, can take certain actions in order to enforce the settlement agreement. But the settlement agreement had nothing to do with clear cooperation policy, right? And when he talks about like our feelings about the clear cooperation policy are well known within any, it's like, but you weren't involved in any of the clear cooperation policy lawsuits. You're not the Department of Justice. You're not government. You're a lawyer. I mean, why does NAR give a crap what your opinions are or our? Who's the our? Who's the we? Is it like he and all of the sellers, the class that he represents? Are we saying that they have a view on clear cooperation? Really? I'd like to see some evidence of that. You know, um, it's just a bizarre statement. This is a bizarre article, and it's a bizarre approach. Like, and he makes these statements like, you know, why in the world if I own a home in the Midwest? Like, it's completely irrelevant. Like what your views are. It's as relevant as any seller and their views. Like, that's cool. If you were to go sell a home, like you do you, bro. But why does that give you some suddenly? It gives you some right to haul people in front of a deposition? Like what? You know. Not only will our law firm and attorneys who can at this eyes of the world are upon them, it's time to do the right thing. Let homeowners make this. All right, man. Look, you want to get on a pulpit and pound the pulpit. I guess that's cool. Like anyone's free to do that. I could get on a pulpit and start pounding it and talk about the eyes of the world are upon you. You better do the right thing. But it's a bizarre threat. That's all I'm getting at. It's a bizarre threat. It's the idea that, well, we're going to depose you and then decide what we're going to do. Depose them on what basis? Who's your client? Let's start there. Okay, fine, Ketchmark. You're going to bring a lawsuit around clear cooperation policy. Who are you representing? Are you representing homeowners? Okay. Like, who are you representing? Because the PLS lawsuit and the Top Agent Network, those lawsuits have been settled effectively at this point. I mean, granted, Top Agent Network could bring it back, but like, you're not their lawyer. Like, who's harmed by this? If the claim is that the home seller is harmed by it, it's gonna be a little bit hard to show that harm, especially if they agreed to it, right? So, effectively, the lawsuit would have to be something like, if I understand, if let's just try and give them the benefit of the doubt, it would have to be something like, I, the seller, was harmed because my agent did not have a choice but to put the listing, my house, into the MLS, which then went to Zillow, like it went everywhere. So I did not get to exercise my preferred marketing strategy, which is make a flyer and pass it out at a local baseball game or pass it out at a church meeting or a school board meeting or pass around flyers. Okay, yes, you are deprived of the right to do that. What's the damage? Is the idea that if you had been allowed to do that instead of exposing it on the internet to the whole market, that you made more money? Like, what's the damage? Like, even if we go through all of this, right? Like, Mr. Ketchmark, I mean, like, I respect what you did in Sitzer and all. Yes, you won, but what's the theory here? Like, I would love to know what the theory of harm is, who was harmed, and then, of course, what the damages are. Like, because I didn't get the opportunity to private flyer based marketing, I lost $10,000 in sale proceeds. Like, is that the theory? Like, I guess. I guess. Now, if you're PLS or Top Agent Network, you had a very clear theory of harm, which they brought out. They're like, we are a private network. We launched. We're a competitor to the MLS, and I put this rule in. We went bankrupt. Therefore, we were harmed economically. Yeah, that's a clear theory of harm. What's the theory of harm if you're Michael Ketchmark and one of his clients. Like, who are your clients that you are bringing this for? Right? Again, this is the first time I'm hearing this idea that lawyers could just depose anybody they want without a lawsuit. Like, that's ridiculous. That's not a thing. So, in any event, that's hilarious. But I mean, part of this was I wanted to react to that. But right after, again, because apparently we as an industry are just obsessed with clear cooperation, uh, was this one, right? Reffkin slams MLS monopoly amid clear cooperation debate. Um, and it's kind of what you expect, I think, from Robert Reffkin at this point. Uh, you know, and these are all kind of things that I kind of have mentioned. But there was one thing that he said um, that I thought was interesting, that I thought was a decent point, right? All right, which is there's also negative insight. Zillow came up, blah, 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 restricts home seller choice, etc. But it's this one, right? Ref can also criticize the push from some factions in the industry to keep clear cooperation. It's all financially motivated. He said of support for clear cooperation, adding that the rule was created to protect NAR and the money it brings in. That's part of it, but I don't know. I think the last time Greg and I talked about this in his relations, one of the things that Greg brought up was, stop fronting, right? Stop pretending like this about something other than what it is, right? In his view, this is Revkin and Compass just wanting to double end as many deals. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true, right? And it's like, let's not have it be like seller choice and seller freedom. Like, that's not what it's about. Okay, that's probably true. But I think Revkin's point is to be well taken here. Again, I don't actually have a strong position on CCP at this point because I'm starting to see kind of what really is what we're talking about here. Um, but it's this. If his point out is that the people who are for clear cooperation are also financially motivated, I think he's absolutely right. I mean, I don't think we can really debate that, right? Um, so let me try and arrive at this way. Because I had a conversation with some friends. There's an event in town. I've had some conversations yesterday, last night. But here's the question, okay? What percentage of agents, like actual realtors on the ground, agents on the ground today, I'm going to stop sharing. What percentage of them do you think are doing what they're doing primarily because they're interested in helping people? Uh, so think of it a little differently. What percentage of doctors out there, medical doctors, got into medicine primarily because they wanted to heal people? Okay, that's why they got into it. Okay, today, what percentage of working doctors today do you think continue working primarily to heal people, right? Versus financially because they can make a ton of money, right? Okay. Similarly, think about any other profession. What percentage of teachers today continue to working as teachers primarily because they really just love teaching children and educating young people versus it's a nice stable job, right? What percentage? And then put it to real estate. I do think that there are agents out there who do what they do primarily because they're motivated by wanting to help buyers and sellers, and potentially because they want to help improve their communities, local communities, right? Like if you were born and raised, you're whatever second generation of some town in North Carolina, and you love your town, you love your city, and you want to help economic growth, you want to help it be like a better place to live. So you're going to get involved in real estate because helping, your neighbors buy and sell houses and also, helping like bring more economic activity or better type of people and having more safety, like all of those good things. Like I believe that there are agents out there who do that, who are motivated primarily by these public interest ideals. I think the vast majority of people in our industry, because again, it's an industry. Like we're not doing this for charity, right? No brokers out there saying, I'm going to open a brokerage because I primarily care about like helping people buy and sell houses. It's like, no, I'm going to start a brokerage because I primarily care about making money. It's a nice business to be in. And I keep going, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? It's a legal business. Like you're providing something of value. People are willing to pay you for it. Like, does it have to be some higher calling thing? And I think the answer is no, it doesn't have to be. Now, if it is, great. Like I'd rather sort of put the people who are doing this primarily out of public interest at a higher echelon than look at people who are doing this primarily because it's a nice job and they could feed their families doing it and like look down on them. Like it's a business, right? It's always been a business. Same thing with the MLS. Like, are we supposed to believe that the MLS exists primarily to benefit the public? Or does the MLS exist because it's a nice business? Local monopolies tend to be pretty nice businesses. Like, what's wrong with that, right? And so much of the debate of late, and I guess the reason why I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other about clear cooperation is everyone wants to appeal to my like some sort of idealistic emotional part. Again, whether if it's Reffkin, he wants to talk about seller freedom and choice, and Ketchmark's like the free market works best. All right, cool. And the other side's talking about like fair housing and buyers have some whatever right to see everything. Like I don't believe either. I guess way to look at it, because fundamentally at the end of the day, none of us we're not in a nonprofit organization. Like none of us are in charity. None of us are doing this primarily for the good of the country or good of consumers. Like most of us are doing this primarily because it's a nice industry. It's a nice job to make money. It's whatever, right? And I keep going back to what's wrong with that. Like, because you want to talk about the free market, okay? Like Ketchmark talks about, I believe in the free market. That's true, but it's a free market, right? Meaning it's a business. It's transactions going back and forth. Sellers aren't selling their house primarily so that some young family could have a place to live. They're selling their house primarily to make a bunch of money from the asset that they own. Buyers aren't buying a house primarily because they want to help the elderly, whatever person, get retirement accounts. That's not what they're buying it primarily because they want a place to live and raise their families. Listing agents are, if they're doing it, honest, if we're gonna be honest about it, they're not doing it primarily because they genuinely just really want to help the seller make a transition, to the next phase of their life. They're doing it because they're gonna make a ton of money from the commission. Buyer agents are helping primarily because, when it's all said and done at the end of the deal, they're going to get paid thousands and thousands of dollars. Like it's a business. And what's wrong with that? Right? If we are capitalists, and I am, and we believe in the free market, and I do, then saying it's business ought to be a positive, right? It should be, it's a business, you guys, and we're competing and we're trying things. And if people want to pay us for it, then great. If they're not, then I'll find something else. Like, what's wrong with that? I don't know why. I don't know why all of us are fronting so damn much on both sides, like pretending it's about buyers or pretending it's about sellers, pretending it's about fiduciary duty. Fact of the matter is, most agents have no idea what fiduciary duty means anyway. Um, and what's wrong with that? Like, if you're, I mean, what's wrong with it is that the law, makes you an agent and you don't know what that means. But whatever, that's the government, and I'm happy to be anti-government. Um, but what's wrong with that? Like, yeah, when you get down to it, I don't see a problem with it. So anyway, just wanted to react to this. If you have different thoughts, I'd love to know. Um, but I do think, as apparently NAR is going to, get to a decision and make some announcement, I don't think it matters that much what the announcement is, what the policy is. I don't. And for a lot of reasons, as you all know. But I do think it would be useful for us all of us in the industry, to just, I don't know, like lower the emotional temperature a little bit, right? It's just business. Whether that's Zillow arguing for stronger, clear cooperation policy because that means they're going to get more data, which allows them to do more business. Like that's cool. Like I don't want to. That's not something to be condemned. Like they're a business trying to do business things and make money. All right, I get that. If Compass and Robert Reffkin want to do things so they could double end more deals or do more buyer leads, to their, so they can recruit more agents. Like, okay, why would you condemn that? Like, they're just doing what's right for them. That's a business. And free markets work, last I checked, when people are pursuing their own interest for their own benefit. And because there's no force, there's no violence involved, they have to come to make a deal, and that's going to end up being mutually beneficial to everybody. Like, why are we condemning this? Same thing. If James Wiggins out there talking about, you should have clear cooperation because it's better for whatever. Okay, let's talk. What it ends up being is it's better for smaller brokers, smaller agents, which is typically who he represents, who his company's made up of. What's wrong with that? Like, you're supposed to do that. Like, everyone's doing what's in their best interest, which is great. That's the free market. That's capitalism. And when it's all said and done, the market will yield sort of optimal results that all of us want, because as long as it's a free market and people have choice, they could do whatever's in their self-interest. There are going to be winners and losers. There are going to be things that work, then things that don't work, but deals get made because it's mutually beneficial. And I think that's where we're going to end up. So we'll see. We'll see. In any event, just figure I'd do this little rant, little observation while I'm testing out the live streaming. So obviously it's unedited. Let me know what you think if you have any questions. All right. Thanks. Bye.